one final testimony here. This is from Nathaniel. I just found this, and it speaks to me on a lot of levels. Too many forget that the continuance of a people should come from the love of one's own people, and not a hate for the other. I hate the mistakes I made. I wear them every day, and some I even wish I could take back. But time is merciless and flows only forward. I'm trying to rectify them, but some I may just have to live with. It's an uphill battle. Listen to this guy, No White Guilt.
Listen to this guy, No White Guilt. No White Guilt. No White Guilt. Listen to this guy, No White Guilt. No White Guilt. No White Guilt.
Everything from being a man to encouraging your kin to face tattoos to how you identify yourself and your beliefs to discerning your motivations for why you want to see the children of the West survive. Don't make my mistakes. You'll feel like a fool otherwise. Don't make my mistakes. As from Nathaniel Nelson, a warning to him about the warnings that he wished he had somebody share with him.
Listen to this guy, No White Guilt. No White Guilt. No White Guilt. Listen to this guy, No White Guilt. No White Guilt. No White Guilt. Listen to this guy, No White Guilt. No White Guilt.
And we are going free, ladies and gentlemen. A brief going free. We want to make sure that we get over to watch Jody Kay and her show as soon as we wrap up here. She's one of our newcomers and a lovely lady doing magnificent things. If everybody can hear me okay, please let me know that you can hear me just fine. I see already wonderful people. Going Free is here. EVCG is here. Radical Mongoose, Lord Hendrickson, Wes is here. Alleluia, Eternalism. Bartleby, the great Bartleby and Raymond are both here moderating. Thank you, my dear brothers. Hendrickson says, please tell us more about your life back when you were still just a little tyke and how environmental media, how the environment and media, I guess, made you white positive. We want to know the things not shared in Crucible. Well, thank you for that question. And I think we'll have to address that some other time because we want to be here quickly. We want this to be a bungeeing in and out with information about what's going on. Didn't even put up a title yet. I guess I'll put one up later. Nordic Iron saying, sounding great, Bartleby, good to go. Great, glad to hear that. Nancy Drew is here. Elaine Sabatino Machiavelli sucks. I think our dear sweet lady Carlisle is with us. Hello to you. Eternalism. Kristen is here. The great Richard Wagner is here. White Healing. Jesse Link is here. Alt Rock Lover is here. Great to see you all. The Advanced Placement. Roy Danton is here moderating as well. Great to see you, dear brother. And or just here. I don't know. I guess he's still doing a lot of unpacking with No White Guilt, maybe still. So let's talk about a few of these things. And if you have any questions about them, let me know while we're here so that we can just, as I say, bungee in and bungee out and get over to our dear sisters stream. We had a number of things that were discussed that I think questions that were unexplored over on PWR today. A great show as always. And of course, we're going to be very nuanced here when it comes to the sort of the claims that are being made by both of these political parties and what is going on with the election of the United States. We have claims coming from both sides. We will speak to both sides, and then we encourage you to look elsewhere for more information so that you can get a balanced view. And elsewhere, we recommend CNN and MSNBC, CNBC, all of these networks. They're wonderful networks where you can get more information on what is going on in the world. And you know that they speak directly from a bush that's on fire. Roy Danton says, getting new tires with NWG. Well done. That's a first. Setting records everywhere, Roy Danton. And they're also doing the state inspection. Very good. Yes, indeed. Machiavellius Sucks says 10 million votes. Asking about 10 million votes. The sound on D Live seems to be a bit funky. Really, it's not coming through on D Live quite right. Well, let's see if I can make a correction on D Live. Is it funky for anybody else on D Live? So I know that it's not our good lady DF. And thank you. Not just her sound coming through D Live of me, but everybody else. Radical Mongoose is asking where to go watch Jody K when we're done with what we're talking about here quickly. Somebody, that'd be great if they could supply Jody's link so that, especially while we get near toward the end of this, so that folks can head right on over. Bartleby says that the D Live sound is okay for him. D Live seems okay to him. Maybe try DF stopping it and restarting it, and maybe it'll be better. All right, I appreciate that. So, any questions? Let's explore them. But let's go ahead. White Rider says the white guilt face masks are on the way too. White guilt face masks? Well, I'll definitely be interested in those. What? Oh, I got you. So you mean they're on the way to me because you had them made, not on the way to you. Great. I'm looking forward to those. That's fantastic. Eternalism says Mike sounds full fidelity on YT and D Live. Okay, DF. It might be just your link. Maybe shut it all the way down and bring it open again, and maybe it'll be better. So let's roll. The first thing I want to mention here is maybe the thing we didn't get to talk about at all over on PWR with Mark, and that is what happened between Donald Trump and Netanyahu and AIPAC. Well, of course, this is the theory, or this is how can I phrase this? This is an immediate deduction that I had, which is probably wrong. So I'm going to suggest that you look elsewhere for a superior minds and authorities out there. Look for them with the title of Democrat, and to find out whether or not my deduction here, my assumption, my conjecture, has any validity to it. And that is this. You had the superficially, and for the public to see, Donald Trump stopped following on Twitter Netanyahu and AIPAC, an individual and an organization. Pardon me. Of course, the organization here, the Israeli Political Action Committee in the United States. And superficially, people are mocking this as just like the behavior of a child throwing a tantrum, and the friends, when your friends are telling you to do the right thing, the right thing, which may be which according to the Democrats is the right thing, according to Republicans is not the right thing. So you got to have both sides of the story. But there's much more to it than that, in my estimation, and again, I could be wrong. And that is this, that all along, it's entirely possible that this friendship that Donald Trump had with Netanyahu and AIPAC was no friendship at all, or to varying degrees friendship, but also that this decision to celebrate Biden as the winner of the presidency, that this decision by that individual and that entity was intentional and was something they were going to do, or they had planned to do. And I won't say that they knew, because there's, of course, no evidence of that Biden was absolutely going to win, but that they once discovered that Biden had, according to the Democrats, won, the election for the presidency, that they then were going to throw their lot in with, celebrate him and endorse him. So what is the more that is behind this, or that I think is behind this, and I'm probably wrong? That is that if Netanyahu and AIPAC were neutral parties that were, and when we say AIPAC, we don't anthropomorphize here as is done everywhere else in the world when it comes to things that aren't individual human beings. We don't anthropomorphize at all. And so when I'm saying AIPAC, I'm cognizant, and I want you all to be cognizant of the fact that the organization is composed of a great many individuals who agree on a lot, but also disagree on some things. So we're not anthropomorphizing, even though for the ease of speech and communicating the idea, it may and will be referred to as a single monolithic entity. If the entity, the organization, and the person in the form of Netanyahu were truly neutral people, entity and person and organization, then they would withhold drawing or any conclusion and withhold their support of either candidate, because Netanyahu himself is a bright person and certainly surrounded by very intelligent people. AIPAC is absolutely staffed with very highly paid and intelligent, educated people. And intelligent and educated people can look at the facts right now, and they do look at the facts, and they see that there are both on the side of the Democrat Party and the Republican Party powerful claims, powerful momentum, powerful opportunity to claim the presidency of the United States. There is no, now and we can just mention here in a moment, the objective of the Democrats, their strategy is a strategy of fait accompli. I'm just going to go ahead and name their strategy here. I'm not saying that that's their strategy. I don't know. Their strategy, of course, was just to honestly win this election. But even though people on the Republican side are going to say otherwise, but it's a strategy of fait accompli. And that is the strategy of we have so much momentum. We have so many people endorsing Biden as the president-elect. We have all of the networks doing it. All of the power holders is supporting him, drawing the same conclusion that he is the president-elect, that it's fait accompli. It can't be undone. You simply have to submit. So that there is this great momentum of fait accompli that would have to be arrested by the Republicans, irrespective of what their objectives are or their avenues are to redress what they believe is irregularities or criminality or etc. in any or sundry parts of the process of electing an individual to office. So Netanyahu, AIPAC, they would be able to look at this and say there is legitimization on both sides of this, momentum on both sides of this, and therefore wanting to be neutral parties, we want to be able to get along with, work with, whatever else with the individual and party who ends up in the White House. So as a neutral entities, we are going to withhold an endorsement, withhold a congratulations, because if we congratulate and endorse the wrong when the wrong person and the other person ends up being the one in the White House legally or illegally, so Republican legally or illegally ends up in the office, Democrat legally or illegally ends up in the office, that they are going to end up on the outside. They're going to end up having to make amends with that individual and that party as a consequence of throwing their lot in with the wrong party, the wrong individual. That's a neutral AIPAC and a neutral Netanyahu. If they were actually friends, which is what it appeared to all of us on the outside, was that there was a great bond between Trump and Netanyahu, a great bond between Trump and AIPAC, and if they were indeed friends, then there would be even more reluctance to endorse the other person and party. because you would have the neutrality issue. We want to be good with whoever gets in the office and whatever party is holding that power. But at the same time, we really like this guy. This guy's an actual friend. We've broken bread with him. He's a Jewish grandfather. He has many Jewish grandchildren. He is given the name by the Jewish community that they give to the respected grandfather of Jewish children. And so they like him. But indeed, we saw the opposite. So what I submit as a possible conjecture, and as I say, may be wrong, was that Netanyahu and those at AIPAC, those who are responsible for determining what the organizational entity will endorse or support, that those individuals had a forethought, concluded that if Biden was perceived to be the winner or the actual winner of the campaign, that they, irrespective of whatever Donald Trump and the Republican Party were going to do or claim, that they were going to immediately throw their lot in with that momentum on the Democrat side, with that fait accompli strategy on the Democrat side. Now, I'm definitely not implying here on YouTube that there was some sort of conspiracy there. It's a conjecture of their decision post-election that they then implemented after the election. So no pre-election. You can guess that on your own if you want to, given the facts on the ground that I'm sharing with you, the facts that I've been able to glean. And there are probably other facts that are much truer that CNN would share with you. So look to them. And also, I'm not speaking for YouTube. So I break this down this way for everybody so that we all can understand this quite easily. And that is that imagine that you found the home of your dreams. It has everything you've ever wanted in a house. It is, you immediately fell in love with this home. It was love at first sight. You had to have this house. And your best friend was aware that you had found the home of your dreams and was excited for you. You place a bid on the home of your dreams to the homeowner who has put this home up for sale. And there is another bidder out there. We will refer to that person as bidder B. And bidder B also places an offer on the home. Well, at first blush, at both of the offers, the offer by bidder B is $200 more than your offer. We can pick any sum more, but it's a little bit more. So say it's $200,200, and your offer is $200,000. Well, of course, we know that real estate contracts are complex, and offers are often riddled with requirements for the homeowner and the like. So we don't know exactly until we look into the details, until we investigate all of the data in the two offers, until we track down all of the bits, all of the sort of the granularities of both offers, which offer is actually better. Even though offer B from bidder B might be $200 more than yours, your offer might be infinitely better to the homeowner and seller, because bidder B's offer might stipulate that the homeowner has to do $10,000 worth of work on their home before bidder B will then give the seller $200,200, which would ultimately mean that the seller would be getting far less money for their home than if they took your contract on the house, because you are not stipulating $10,000 worth of work that has to be done on the home before you will offer the sum of $200,000 for it. So both contracts go to the seller. The seller here represents the population as a whole in this analogy. The contracts and how granular and detailed they can be, manifold they can be, represent all of the different avenues, all of the different claims of legality, illegality, etc. that are brought forward by both the Democrat and the Republican parties. Now, your best friend who is aware that this is your dream house, he or she knows that this is the home you have always wanted. You have talked about always wanting the wraparound porch, and the wraparound porch is on this house, and you have talked about so many different things. He knows this is your dream house. Well, inexplicably, as soon as these offers hit the desk of the seller, your best friend runs to the seller of the home and says, go with bidder B. Go with bidder B's contract. It's $200 more. Therefore, it's a better contract. Don't bother looking into the details of the contracts. Just go for the bid offer by bidder B. And then your best friend turns around to you and says, really sorry that this happened, that you lost this house. Bidder B offered $200 more, and it's just, that's the way the cookie crumbles, as the saying goes. You, of course, would say, what in the Sam hell are you doing? Why did you go to the seller? And in the analogy here, going to the seller of the home is the momentum that is increased by people acknowledging the Joe Biden as the president-elect. So you would say to your best friend, why did you go to the bidder or the home seller and tell the home seller to take bidder B's offer just because it was $200 more? We have these complex contracts. Who knows what's in the contract offer by bidder B? Maybe it's a $10,000, maybe it's a $50,000 stipulation. Who knows? Why would you betray me and try to manipulate the seller into just adopting bidder B's offer because it's $200 more? That is a possible interpretation, as I say, a conjecture, and you can then take that information and go with it where you like. So I think in this conjecture, as we view this conjecture, if it's accurate, then we're seeing something, a serious division between Donald Trump, this individual, and this organizational entity. Now, I had somebody I shared this with who immediately jumped to the conclusion that, well, isn't that going to be a good thing? Because in this person's estimation, AIPAC is less good than bad for the United States. And that person would like to see Donald Trump reject this organization. I don't think that would necessarily be the outcome at all. I think probably, if anything, he would throw his weight in with the individuals inside of that organization who are not in power or who do not hold as much power, who do not hold as much sway, in an attempt to elevate them to the point where they would then control and dominate that organization and restore some sort of benefit to Donald Trump down the road by way of this organization. That's what I would surmise. But again, I could be wrong. And you have to ask and look to CNN and Snopes and all of these sorts of websites for the truth of the matter. But that is what I think happened. A lot of people are just overlooking it as a silly thing. And I think that this unfollowing of Netanyahu and AIPAC, and I think that is a lack of intellectual depth to do that, to not see exactly what's taking place there. So I hope that I have enlightened people a bit on that. We will be checking out of here in just a moment. I mentioned briefly about what I think the strategy for the Democrats could be called. Whether it's right or wrong, ask the Democrats, and whether it's right or wrong, ask the Republicans, get both sides. But that is the strategy, what I'm terming just the fait accompli strategy. It's done and can't be undone. And but I did mention that the Republicans are claiming that in some of the claims coming out of Republicans and those who are working with the Republicans, is that there are a lot of voter irregularities or ghost voting and these sorts of things. The Democrats on the other side are saying that is hogwash and that the election was won fair and square. Nonetheless, the Republicans, this is not in any way a capitulation. We're not at any sort of capitulating moment for the Republican Party and the Trump campaign. There are several, according to the Republicans, several paths that they can take to redress what they believe is an erroneous and presumptuous conclusion that the president-elect is actually Joe Biden, when certainly we know that as a fact on the ground, the electors have not come to Washington, D.C. yet, and that's when this is actually decided. So that there are several paths. There is according to the Republicans, a precedent at the level of the Supreme Court that was I think it's the Carter-Ford, between Carter and Ford, and there's that they are going to be arguing, and there are some other constitutional remedies to redress the concerns that the Republicans have. And of course, on the other side of the spectrum, the Democrats are saying that you will see these electors are going to go to Washington, D.C., that it was fair and square election, and that they will officially make Joe Biden the presidential elect on the appointed day for those electors to place their votes in the nation's capital. But of course, what we're hearing now across the regime's media is this anti-white cant, this anti-white bellicosity, and the threats if the anti-whites don't get what they want. And I have shared, and it is getting worse. And I will say here that even though it's not being reported, and it's probably not being reported because you know that anything that CNN and MSNBC and the rest, and even Fox News now, we've been saying this about Fox for some time, but now it's almost 100% of Fox News. So when it was like 80% of Fox News was anti-white, we were saying Fox News is no good. Well, now it's even a greater percentage is anti-white. So if Fox and CNN and the rest don't report on something, that means it absolutely didn't happen. You can just always take that to the bank. You know that the regime's media never buries anything in the sand and never misrepresents anything. Having said that, there are many Republicans and judges now who are going to be hearing cases, elected Republicans, the staffs of Republicans who are in office, judges who are going to be hearing some of these cases brought forward by one party. And perhaps there'll be cases brought forward by the other party as well. And even the lawyers who are working on behalf of one party are claiming that they are being their lives are being threatened. They're claiming that they are receiving in a most brutal, terroristic, psychologically damaging way, these lives being threatened. Not just somebody, say, calling up and saying that they don't like you and you should be liquidated or something like this, but actually taking photographs of you and your children, where they go to school, where your spouse goes to work, and then placing packages at these people's homes in their mailboxes that show the photographs with maybe the heads of your children cut out of them, and then claims of, will there be, all of this is far worse. All of that they're going to do to you and your children and your spouse, wife or husband, is far worse than death, and that you'll be begging for death by the time that they're done with these people. This is being claimed. Of course, it's not being reported. And as I said, at the regime's news, it's not being confirmed by Snopes. And until it does, then it's not true. But these are claims that are being made by one side of the political divide in the United States, the judges who will be hearing cases from both sides, and the lawyers representing one side. So do your research. We're in an era where you have to do all of your own research and to make sure that you have come to the right conclusion. And we here have tried to give you both sides of the picture as best as we can. Let me just say also, we've got information coming out from the Postmaster General, the individual who, and we're just wrapping up here quickly so we can get over and watch Jody. The individual who came forward to Project Veritas, making some claims, then wore a wire when he was summoned to the Postmaster General's office. And you can look into, in the news, exactly what was said by the Postmaster General to this individual. I'm not exactly sure exactly what it was. I think something about it's good to feel afraid. It's good to feel terror because your mind is clearer, and then you can claim that what you said before was not true. I don't know if that's true or not, if that's what he said or not. I guess we will find out when we hear the audio tapes. And then even when we hear the audio tapes, we'll wait until Snopes says it's true. So there's that news that's out there. I want to tell you all that in this community that I've found out now, aware that Althea Promethea from Twitter, many of us followed Althea. She followed you. She shared a lot of news from this community. She was arbitrarily censored off of the platform, having done nothing wrong, and the account is gone. There's nothing to log into anymore, so it's obviously gone. She has moved over to Instagram, and I will share that link right now. If you would like to follow her on Instagram, she'll be continuing her service to White Wellbeing over on that platform. And so please do, if you are on Instagram, pick up follow her there, and keep the work that she's doing for White Wellbeing. Keep that work alive. I don't know. There was other things that Jared Taylor said. I don't know if you all had any questions about any of that, and I could speak to that quickly here. I also want to say a happy Veterans Day, and whatever it's named around the Western world. In the United States, that's what we are remembering our veterans today. And I personally remember all of our good men and women who fought on both sides of every single conflict when we were at war with each other, and our men and women when we fought against invaders and the like from other communities and peoples around the world. And I think that what's most important is that in honoring all of them, we commit ourselves again and again to never again be duped into brothers' wars on behalf of other peoples and interests other than our own, as a single people, a single nation on planet Earth with many countries. That is how we should never be in a situation again where we say we want to have something good for the white people in country A at the expense of our white brothers and sisters in country B. There is no need for that. It is arbitrary, and we can make sure that every act that we engage in once we recapture our destiny relative to governance and economy and the like will be to the benefit of everyone in a fair and actually equitable way. It can be done. None of our communities around the world have to be shafted, have to be shortchanged, so that some other of our communities someplace else can be enriched at their expense. So a heartfelt gratitude and respect to our brothers and sisters throughout time who have engaged, who have answered the call for glory, and who have gone out and either as combatants or those who support the combatants have lost their lives, lost loved ones as well in those actions. It is a most heroic thing to do, to answer that call. And it is something that is natural inside of us, our biospirit, in service to Western kind. I started with that great little country tune, or the southern tune, kind of a bluegrassy tune, because of course, being a proud Southerner, I am a born Virginian. I'm very proud of my relatives who, when Virginia seceded and joined the Confederate States of America, they immediately joined the army, the Confederate Army of this new nation, to defend their homeland of Virginia and more broadly, the Confederate States of America, so that they could have their independence in a war that was almost a foregone conclusion at its outset, because, of course, the United States had a infinitely larger population. They had almost all of the industry in the United States, and so it was an instance in history where really very truly realized the biospirit of the West in a war where you knew any war where you knew that you were likely to be maimed or killed, and you were also likely to almost guaranteed to lose, and yet they flew to the colors in a heroic and noble way. And I remember them, and I thank them for their sacrifices. And as I say, I remember those on the other side of that conflict as well, and celebrate their courage on those battlefields. None of those men went out to any of these conflicts under the objective information of what was actually taking place in the world and relative to those conflicts, and then consciously were making the decision with that objective reality to kill their brothers and sisters. Undoubtedly, there were always criminals in our midst, and we always punish our criminals, but I'm not remembering them, just those who were doing the right thing as they saw, given the information, lies or truth that they were provided with when engaged in those actions. So I remember and honor every single one of those individuals. I do want to also mention again quickly, before I look at what you have to say, and then we'll get out of here, White People's Quarterly is available. Don't miss this wonderful, wonderful magazine. As I say, we're going to be reviewing it again. The article written by KD and on Going Free this coming Sunday. Make sure you reach out and get that. A big thank you to Tony Vermont. Keep an eye on everything that's happening, folks. Some anti-whites now are trying to mislead the population of the United States, and indeed the world, Western population around the world. Very few of them, though. And they're talking about a rapprochement. They're talking about, well, now we're going to come together, or something of this nature. And some of them who are saying this might not be deceptive. Some of these people might not be dissimulating what their true intents are. They might be honest in that. But that is not, absolutely not, what is going to take place when it comes to the anti-whites. They are out for blood. There'll be no quarter given whatever powers, or to the level of whatever powers they are able to wield. That is the reality. The majority of them are saying so. They're saying so from positions of power in governance. They're saying so from positions of power in private entities. And therefore, we need to view this for what it actually is. So let me see what you all have to say. And over here on Entropy, we have a financial gift, 20 pounds. Thank you so very much. 20 pounds, and it's from David. Thank you so much for that, David. And he writes here, Jared, Jason, Jody. Well, thank you so much for that. Right. So we had Jared, I guess Jared Taylor you're talking about, or Jared George. But if it's today, then it's Jared Taylor, and then me, and then Jody. We're going to be getting out of here so we can go watch her. She's going to have a fantastic show. We did have the question earlier with Jared Taylor about why were more women, white women voting for Trump, and fewer. We saw fewer white men, and a tiny, when you average out all of the non-white votes for the Republicans, it comes out to like 3% more than they've done, which is better in the previous elections, which is better than 60 years. And they're celebrating that they can't be called the anti-white slur racist anymore. They better think again. They're celebrating this new Republican Party of a party that now represents what some are trying to refer to as this multiracial working class. No, it's 4 years have been spent by Donald Trump saying everything he's going to do for all of these non-white races individually, naming them as well as women, ignoring white males. Time and again, he's saying this. And that's not lost upon white men. When they hear themselves always being excluded, when they hear others being talked about and themselves always being excluded, they're not exactly fired up to go vote for somebody who is excluding them from everything that he said he's going to do for folks, and then actually instantiates, actually does do for all of these different groups. It's also important that 4 years of all of that, this is all that I'm going to do for all these different groups, and actually doing it only netted that tiny, almost it seems infinitesimal increase in votes from these communities. So what I said all the way back in junior high school, which is what I write about in Crucible, was that eventually it will just get to Republican and Democrat Party will just be the two parties of promises to the non-white populations. We will give you more than the other party. And that's exactly what the Republicans in these past 4 years, what the Republicans have been doing all along. I worked on the Hill many years ago. That's why I left, because the entire strategy was just a strategy of who cares about the Westmen. This is all about winning over these non-white votes. And back then, it was, as it has been for so long, very few non-white votes. And still today, very few non-white votes, just ticks up a little bit, even though we now have, maybe 40 years or more of Republicans, 50 years, promising and giving and doing more for the non-white communities in the United States than the white race, going out of their way to not only not mention the white race, but ignore the white race. And when you're hearing endlessly that the group is special, and this group is special, and that group is special, and this group is special, and they're going to get more, and they do get more, and there is a group there that is not being mentioned, nobody is dumb enough to not notice the group that's not being mentioned. No white male. And so it doesn't mean that these people went out and voted for Biden, but I definitely can see a sizable group of white males who are saying, I'm not even going to bother. Probably think to themselves, he's going to win anyhow. I'm not voting for him because he doesn't give a Sierra about me and my son or what have you. So let's see what you all have to say. And I'm going to roll out. We'll get over to Jody. And I'll just walk back up through this gathering of heroes, as always. I've got many things to do as well for in service to White Wellbeing. I see, is that Lil G? I think that's the first time I've seen you. Welcome. Glad to see you. Catherine is here. Great to see you. Monster Moose. That's a great name. Great to see you. Canuck says, I personally have no white guilt, but I also think this election was stolen from people. We pay to serve us. So I was curious here. Well, I would say that, first of all, you have to, I know you feel like, well, it's a sign of weakness to say that you have white guilt. And so you're just we can affirm that we have no white guilt. And that's what we do when we are in conversations with an anti-white, when we are declaring it to the anti-white world, that we're not going to have any white guilt. But we've been infected with mean pathogens. And so don't overlook these anti-white precepts that you've been infected with. And there are a great many of them, and we talk about it in Going Free. Because if you do not treat the mean pathogens for the rest of your life, and it's a very easy process, it's very straightforward, it's tenable, it's tangible. If you do not do this, you won't get better. And every time you have a debate, every time you get into an argument, you will feel the first person you're arguing with is you, your subconscious mind. So I hope you're going free. I hope you have the manual and you begin the practice in earnest for the rest of your life. And I see you say you think the election was stolen from people we pay to serve us. And we don't know what side, for all those who are listening at YouTube, what side of the spectrum that Köhne is from. So who knows what side he's talking about doing the stealing. But nonetheless, it's, yeah, I get what you're saying. There are people, the time is, and a lot, MAGA people are coming to this realization, many more, and we need to help them come to this realization, something that we know in the white positive sphere. And that is, you do not have in nodes of power individuals who are reasonable and who will honor the facts on the ground. You have too many individuals in nodes of power being paid, as Köhne says, with our tax dollars, and big money at that, being paid, who are 100% anti-white, and every decision they make is going to be informed by anti-white doctrine, and even when that means that their acts are illegal. And we saw this in spades over the past summer of the destruction of Western civilization, Western kind, in the United States and indeed around the world. So yeah, these people with power and positions of power are using that power and the money that we pay them to undermine a great many things, to undermine, say, the McCloskeys' right to brandish a firearm when 200 people come onto their property chanting that they're going, rip the wrought iron gate off, and so they can get on the property and say that we're going to murder you and your wife and your dog, but we're going to rape your wife first and torture your dog as well. So denying them that, taking them that right that every human being has, and government does not have the legitimacy to abridge. Archaeology says, hi, well, big hello to you. Great to see you. White Healing is here. LRN is here. Nika is here. Corey Bell, great to see you all. Skyscraper, Nancy Drew, lovely lady, great to see you. Elaine Sabatino, another wonderful woman. DF says the actual winner, and she has a picture of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Great, cute little emoji. And I'm sure after all of this is resolved, it will be a little easier to have a conversation here. Right now, there are a lot of angry people about, and they're taking wild steps in favor of whatever they believe in. All right, Jesse Link says he followed Althea. Well, thank you so much for that. Liv Freeze says, how are you going to help the people? Big question there. Richard Wagner says, Jared Taylor talked about states separating. I know, and it's regrettable that he spoke to that. I think he was in a way that seemed plausible. I think he was. I mean, I would have to drill down with him on it, but I think he was just trying to maybe give a hope to some people who seem quite hopeless. The legality of a state seceding from the United States. The problem is, and thank you for the question, and I'll get to Liv Free's question. The problem is that our perception of what the United States is not the objective reality. The perception that we are given is that what the founding fathers in the United States created is a continued, that what we have today is just a legitimate continuation of what the founding fathers created. Now, there is a reason why those anti-white oligarchs would want that to be taught and in schools, and a great many reasons that, of course, could fit very smoothly and easily under the rubric of psychological warfare. The United States is not. Well, let me just rephrase that. Some would argue that the United States is not, and if I were to argue that, I'm sure I would be wrong, a continuation of what the founding fathers created. In one respect is, pardon me, the sovereignty of the states. So much so many people still believe this to be the case, that you have whole organizations that it's the whole organization is about the sovereignty of the state and states' rights. And you hear politicians talk about states' rights. They're not in on it, by the way, in an Alex Jonesian way. They're not coming forward and like carrying on the sham of that. They actually believe that that the United States is a legitimate continuation of what the founding fathers created, and that states have sovereignty and they have the right to pull away from the United States. That right was abrogated when the Confederate States of America were defeated. It is no longer legal for a state to secede from the United States. The states are not independent sovereign entities anymore. They are managerial bodies. So their secession from the United States is as legitimate as the sales department seceding from the local grocery store chain, or it's impossible. There is no legal route to do it. So they could, not dumb people, but misled people could could attempt to implement the steps at a federal level, at a state level, to secede, and then they would be met with the reality, the sobering reality, that no, this has all been changed. Maybe you weren't taught that in school, maybe you didn't learn that on your own autodidactically, but indeed, this has all been resolved. You are now a managerial subset of the empire of the United States, and you cannot secede. There is no chance of that. Now, my guess is that Jared Taylor was not speaking from a position of ignorance, not knowing that it's no longer legal to secede, but more of a general sense of maybe something could somehow wonderfully happen in the future. We've talked about here before that there can be no opposition to the regime by individuals. And a lot of good-intentioned people, but people who are maybe not in the know, people who are not intelligent enough or educated enough or whatever it might be, think that there can be some sort of spontaneous combustion resistance to a hostile, tyrannical regime, or just an objectionable regime. Or say you have, they'll say now there are 71 million people, or whatever number they want to give, who clearly say that they don't want this anti-white governance in the United States, at least as it is interpreted and implemented by anti-whites who call themselves Democrats. And so therefore, we are on the verge of secession, of civil war, or something like this. That is regrettably a piss poor, dumbass, backward understanding of the human animal, human nature, and how socio-political politics and social, the group mind of the human animal. It is a piss poor, backward, unintelligent, uneducated interpretation of all of that. You need an oppositional pole in which people, especially what we're talking about here, of course, is Western kind. We need a moral framework in which to act. Only our reprobates, only our criminals can act for their enrichment or empowerment without a moral framework. And so Western kind needs an oppositional pole around which to come together, so that this gravitational pull will bring them together. This is why I said, if T-Rex wanted to, in the future, he could become the center of such a resistance to the anti-white regime in the United States, around the world. He could become that because so many people have invested their identities and their hopes and their dreams in him, and they've invested their loyalty in him, and that means that their loyalty is not invested in as greater part as it is with Trump in other entities like their church, their alma mater, the government of the United States, their state governments. I mean, nobody really has when the South seceded, the people had their loyalty, their faith was invested in the state. So when you look at the statements of these the individuals, the great individuals who seceded in the United States, Robert E. Lee, for example, and he was offered to lead the United States military. He was, of course, you can look at his history. I'm sure he's Beelzebub if you ask CNN, but you can look at his history as a military officer, his successes at West Point, academics and the like. I mean, it's non-pareil. And he was offered the generalship of the entire United States military. And he said, I thank you, but I cannot break my loyalty to my fair Virginia. So his people's loyalty were to their states in the South, so that when they left, they were the Confederate states because the people in Virginia were loyal to Virginia, the people in Texas were loyal to Texas, the people in Florida were loyal to Florida. That's how they were able to form an oppositional pole to the United States. If you don't have an oppositional pole, then what you have are angry individuals. And when individuals, when they do act out against the system, they are, such as the anti-white regime, they're jailed, they're fired, they're harassed, they're targeted, they're terrorized, they could be executed. And so that's why you don't see any individual or you don't see sane and numerous individuals coming forward spontaneously like fire, spontaneous combustion, and saying, we are just coming together as individuals and resisting. No, so there could be other ways this could happen. If T-Rex didn't want to form the oppositional pole himself, perhaps another individual in his name or individuals could step forward and form that legitimate oppositional pole. Now it's going to be under attack the entire time, the psychological warfare, which is why the oppositional pole's success or failure would hinge on a sizable percentage of those individuals going free, because it doesn't matter what flag you wave. If you do not have the psychological defense for the psychological warfare that the anti-whites have defeated us with, then they're just going to defeat you again. It doesn't matter how loudly you sing the anthem of your country, or how bright the colors, or all of that is irrelevant. How big the cross or the crucifix, all of that has been defeated by the psychological warfare of anti-whiteism. So we would need a great percentage of those people. Whatever that percentage would be required to win, we would need them to be practicing going free. So that is I guess it's not succinct, but nonetheless, it could go on for a lot longer. I think it's all the information you need to understand that there can't be a secession in the United States without right now it would not be legal. And right now, it is also impossible without an oppositional pole. Live free, we'll have to get back. This is a huge question. How are you going to help the people? And I assume when you say help the people, you're talking about the general masses. Well, and I just spoke to that, and we can come back to that on Sunday. I hope you'll return 5 to 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning, Eastern time, rather, United States. And come back and we can talk longer about it. But ultimately, we need to get the practice of going free to as many of our brothers and sisters, vagues out there, as possible, so that they have the psychological defense for the psychological warfare waged against us. I mean, I saw Tom Cotton, a Republican, on, what was he on last night? It was on one of the Fox shows last night, And he actually spoke entirely within the anti-white narrative. And every single thing he said was easily, even though he was ardently trying to defend the Republican Party and those who vote for him, who are conservative people, MAGA people, every single thing he said was easily defeatable by the anti-whites because he was in their narrative. And what I will do one of these days, and maybe sooner than later, is I will take maybe a Tucker show where Tucker seems to be making his best arguments, and I will absolutely, within the anti-white narrative, and I will show you how easy it is to dismantle an argument that would defend Western kind and Western civilization if you make that argument inside of the anti-white narrative. It is most simplistic, and that's why even the dumbest people out on the anti-whites out on the streets, the dregs, why they can defeat even somebody as bright, quick-witted, and intellectually agile as Tucker Carlson. You just, when you watch them and they make these points like Tom Cotton was making last night, or Tucker Carlson, or the other guy that Hannity, I think is his name. Yeah, Hannity. When they make these arguments, you might have these, or not might, you will have these sensations if you are a nationalist, a MAGA person, or what have you. You'll say, wow, yes, that's absolutely right. But you don't have the contrary present. So what ends up happening is you think some kind of brilliant point was just made. Then you go out with your brother-in-law, your sister-in-law, your friend, your coworker. You make the same point thinking that it's going to engender the same potency in your audience. And in reality, you suddenly hear a statement back that completely defeats what you thought was so powerful. That is why we have to go free. This is the only way to do it, live free, is to get going free to as many people as possible. Right now, Crucible is the nonfiction story, is the way to reach as many of our brothers and sisters, because when they pick that book up and they begin to read, they will see their lives in that in the pages of that book. They will immediately identify with me in that story, and they will recall the trauma that they endured as a youth, the anti-whiteism that they were infected with as a youth, and then they will be, by way of that, introduced to the lexicon and dialectics of going free, and many of them will come further as a consequence. Thank you for that great question. Breezy says, thank you for your service. Hooah! Well, thank you so much for being here and for the appreciation for the service. Lapis is here. Great to see you, sweet lady. So Teutonic is here. What a Teutonic Resistance TV. I like it. It's a great name. Great seeing you. The Mr. International Puppy is here. Great to see you. And getting really close to wrapping up here today, ladies and gentlemen. But it was an honor to be able to come on and share a few thoughts with you all. And there's the great Mrs. Jess Horst. And 41 BMC is here. Promethean hails, good brother, he writes. A big Promethean hails to you. And to everybody who showed up here. Chrissy is here. Hello to you, sweet lady. William Runner. Always a great champion. Great to see you. And, you know, I didn't even pull up. Just let me make sure that I didn't miss anybody from, if anybody financially gifted, I didn't even think to open it on Cash App, but I don't want to miss anybody if they did. And looks like we did have, let's see. I will call you Gab. I will call you Gab. Gab has financially gifted $7 over here on Cash App. Thank you so very much for that, Gab. You are, I think you're new to me. The name doesn't look familiar. And you write here, currently going free from the anti-white narrative, in all caps. I love it. That's fantastic. Thank you so very much. You're going to be stronger physically, mentally, and spiritually as a consequence of this. And you'll be able to reach those around you in a way that you could have never imagined before and change lives. We're changing them every day. And thank you so very much for that financial gift. Let me quickly come over here. Remember, we are going over to watch Jody as soon as we wrap up here. And if you don't get to see, as a consequence of me being verbose, we'll say loquacious. As a consequence of me being loquacious, if you didn't get to see much of her live, make sure you watch the whole of it in replay, or allow the whole of it to play in replay, and make sure you upvote her video, and also that you share the link to her channel with people in your circles of influence. DF writes here, can you share the opening track info? Who is playing it? It's not one of our people, regrettably, but I just found it. It's free use, and it's Billy in the Low Ground, and I will look for the rest of the information. I think if you type that into your search engine, Billy in the Low Ground, maybe it'll come up. And but if you can't find it, I will look for the rest of the information and get it to you all so that you can download it and listen to it. It is fantastic. Anglo-Saxon Freedom is here. Colt Python. June is here. Great to see you, dear lady. Piers Taylor is here. Wonderful to see you. Nothing but champions. Nancy Drew. Heidi is here. Great to see you. Misty is here. Great to see you all the way around planet Earth. Don't you love it? We all get together. If you didn't get a chance to be here for the totality of this stream, also please go back and watch it when you get an opportunity. We're sharing some information here over the course of this stream that is that's valuable to us, valuable to our people, and will be valuable to your life individually. Looks like we are blank over here. So, ladies and gentlemen, it was a wonderful opportunity to get together. And if you have any more questions, please set them aside for Going Free on Sunday, unless we do it'll be next Sunday, unless we roll in with a Going Free, one of those short ones where I don't actually appear. Maybe sometimes I'll appear on camera on those. We'll see. But yeah, save it for next time. Otherwise, please, everybody get on over to Jody and the great show that she is doing. Make sure you support her, and we will see you all the next time. Going Free.